Today is February 28th, 2023, and we just completed ceiling drywall in the bedroom half of the house. It was a lot of work. The 5/8 drywall is extremely heavy. It's 107 pounds of sheet. So that is beyond my ability to lift. I definitely need Morgan's help to get the sheets up onto the drywall lift. These half-inch sheets are actually super light. I could pick up one of these 12-foot sheets for myself and get on the wall. We have our purple board, which is the mold and moisture resistant drywall. We have 5/8 in the ceiling. I wound up putting 1/2 inch on the walls. Unfortunately, because I designed my house myself, and AutoCAD, as you might have seen in our series, I didn't know what I was doing, and I made our bathroom 8 foot 4 inches long. Mold and moisture resistant drywall only comes in 8-foot sheets, so we had to have a very short butt joint in every single board, which is terrible, but we'll work around it. You might have seen earlier that we were making the butt boards. Here's a video of one now, and basically you're going to butt both pieces of drywall up against each other on the board, screw them down to the board, and this little shim will make the drywall suck up against the board, and it'll basically convert a butt joint into a taper joint. Usually it's hard to see, but here's a spot where you can really see it happening. You can see we've got a butt joint here, but because we've used the butt board, you can see it's not quite flush with the other sheets of drywall. That's because it's been pulled in, and we'll be able to tape that just like a normal flat joint. Here's a case study in our progression of learning how to use the rotozip tool. That's hole number 1. Hole number 2. And hole number 3. So it only took 3 holes to figure out really how to use it. So despite what some people say, it's not a hard tool to use, and it's only like, I think it's like $100. You do go through a lot of rotozip bits, and those are expensive. It's like $15 for a 8-pack, or sorry, $15 for an 8-pack. But you want to make sure you get the ones with the guide point, because the guide point doesn't cut, and it lets you ride along the edge of a box. Here's an example where I did. This is my first electrical box with the rotozip. Despite how much of a catastrophe this looks like, I actually started over here thinking my box was here. Once you find the box, it's extremely easy to run along these metal boxes. The edge is nice and thick, and it's really easy to trace these out. So as long as your boxes are well marked, and you can find the center of them when you punch through with the rotozip, those are no problem either. As you can see, Morgan's running around coating screws, so she's got this room all done. You of course have to make sure that the heads are below the surface of the paper, but you don't want to sink them. They just kind of dimple in, and that way you can tape over them, or mud over them, and you probably can't see on camera, but they all kind of sink in. It's because the mud shrinks, so that's why you have to go back and do 2, probably 3 coats on the screws. So she's not quite confident enough to go back and do the taping yet, but she's more or less got this whole ceiling done with screws. This is our great room. We're making really quick progress in here. It turns out the bigger rooms are actually the easiest because you can use full sheets. Every joint is again a butt board. If I zoom in here, you might be able to see it in the corner of this joint there. That 1/2 inch, or that those 2 butt joints, they pulled in a little bit, and so they're not flush with that continuous sheet below it. The hardest part of this room actually isn't the ceiling height. It's none of that. It's not the slope. The drywall lift just goes up there no problem, but the hardest part is actually the peak, because you can't use a drywall lift up there. The sheet's not quite long enough. It's 1/2 sheet of drywall, and when you try and put it on the lift and stick it up there, the support arms of the drywall stick to the ceiling, so those have to be lifted up there by hand, and Morgan and I are not quite strong enough to lift a 1/2 sheet of 12-foot 5/8 fire rated up on the ceiling when we're standing on 2 8-foot ladders. So we're gonna have to figure out something, but
that's the polite way of saying I'm not strong enough.
One tricky spot. I've got a friend who's coming down in about a month, and I might end up just saving that little patch left for him, because I think that me and him might be able to do it. All we got left now is in the great room. is this room. It's I'm gonna get some 8-foot sheets because I can do it with 3 8-foot sheets. Same for this pantry. It's probably 2 8-foot sheets and a scrap. And then the toilet room and the closet. Those are just gonna be. The toilet room is conveniently 1 12-foot sheet cut in half, and the closet is just a short little scrap. We ended up not using the double stacked scaffolding because it doesn't actually fit in this room. The corners poke right into the ceiling, and it wasn't so much a problem when there was only insulation in there because the ceiling was flexible and you could kind of get away with nudging around the trusses, but drywall doesn't let you do that at all. So we just ended up banging up the drywall, and you can see some scratches from where we tried to bring it in here. We'll probably cut it in half, or not cut it in half, but turn it into 2 single height scaffolds and use it to do the very long tapered joint in this room, and probably other rooms as well. Of course, like any room, our room isn't square, and you can see even though we're lined up here, right where the trusses transition from the slope ceiling to the flat ceiling, I had to follow that line with the sheets of drywall, but it doesn't. It ends up with a gap along this wall, and that's just because this wall is not perfectly straight. You only have so much flexibility with the ICFs. You really want to get them plumb and square, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're flat, because they're just adjusting the turnbuckles on those strong backs. But that's gonna be no problem. We'll just probably throw some spray foam in there, and then some 45-minute quick set. One little tiny piece here. We're waiting to have a piece cut off so we can just finish that up. But yeah, this one real easy. We haven't done anything with this big flat wall yet because we're planning on doing the radiant wall there, and I don't really want to mess with that just yet. I'm gonna save that for later. But yeah, that's where we're at, the last day in February, and we have a ceiling. It's actually really crazy to walk through here and not be able to see into the attic anymore, and it definitely holds the heat in a lot better. So these were a real pain in the butt to cut around. It's hard to get the rotor zip to ride on that thin sheet metal. So this one's not so bad. There's gonna be a big grate that's gonna go in there and hide most of that air, but so it didn't go so hot. I ended up having to take the filter out, and then some of these are truly atrocious. But yeah, I mean, it's all stuff we'll just need to fix. Here's another one where I missed. I got in the habit of just making a quick hole to make sure I didn't dive off into the middle of nowhere if I miss my can. So that'll be easy to tape and throw some quick set in there. We end up doing about a room a day, or a room a night. We can do a lot more on the weekends, but when we got 2 or 3 hours after work, we can do about a room. This is kind of an odd one. This is the dormer room. We're not actually going to mess with hanging the dormers until we can get some help, probably from some friends or our parents, because you see kind of a lot of hands when you got a big floppy sheet up there in the ceiling. But we ended up cutting these drywall sheets long, and then I took the rotor zip and ran along the furring strip there just so I could cut them flush. I'm going to butt my next sheet of drywall down over that. This room, I couldn't quite do it with 1 12-foot sheet lengthwise, and so I ended up doing it with 3 little cut-up pieces to make sure I'd only get tapered joints. I think that's the way to go. You want your sheets parallel to the trusses anyway, or perpendicular, and this way I got tapered joints. I did the same thing over here. Maybe we'll regret it, I don't know. But I couldn't do that with one sheet because it's 16 inches wide by over 12 feet. So with this one I ended up with a taper joint anyway and a butt seam. And this way I only end up with 2 taper joints, which I think is a lot easier to finish. And it's the stronger direction for the drywall. And this dormer isn't super well supported, so I mean it's only gonna help. We came back and redid the closet. I don't know if I have video of when we first attempted the closet, but it was a nightmare. It didn't line up anywhere. There was huge gaps along the corners, and that's when I realized that my drywall T-square is nowhere near square. So I don't know. The people in the videos online, they seem to trust their T-square to be square, and it definitely speeds up cutting because you don't need to measure from both sides to make sure you're square on the sheet. But I don't know where to find a T-square that I can trust. I mean, I looked at a couple in the store, flipped them over, and did the test that you can do to test if your drywall square is square. I'll probably do a quick video snippet on that. But none of them were nearly square enough. They're off by like 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch over 4 feet, which is just not good enough for drywall. You'll end up with huge gaps. So that's that. Officially, wife has all of her levels out, the 2 foot, the 4 foot, and the 6 foot, making sure we have the flattest closets in the world.
This isn't a closet, this is a bathroom, thank you very much. It's gonna drive me nuts forever. How does it feel to have drywall?
Cold. Warmer, but cold. 58, 30 something outside. Cold. 58 in here.
But the fireplace is running.
Fireplace is very nice, very warm.
We ran out of torpedo heater, propane.
Might be the last propane tank of the year.
Woohoo.
Or ever.